Now, annually, the creative industries contribute an estimate 90 billion rand to the local economy, and audiovisual is key. But many local film or professionals are leaving the country in search for better opportunities as government reforms and tax breaks for foreign-funded projects have dwindled. The industry fears that contentious policy changes will lead to growth challenges for the sector, along with billions of rands lost in potential investment. The Business Day's Mudiwa Gavaza painted the story, and he joins us now with much detail. Mudiwa, thank you for your time and a good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Olutando.
This is an industry we don't often hear about, Mudiwa, but of course, it is a time when it is facing some sort of challenges with government. Just take us through the issue of foreign-funded projects and how they do contribute to the local film industry here in South Africa.
So this one is, it was quite an interesting one to research. It's something that, we were working on for about a month and a half, because of some of the regulations that have changed in the sector. Like you said, we don't often talk about, this part of the sector, but we'll have, lots of discussions about what's going on with multi-choice and Canal Plus, about streaming and all that, but there's content that needs to be fed, into all of these machines. And, a good chunk of that had been coming from some of the big budget international films. People will remember that there were films such as Blood Diamond, parts of which were shot featuring Leonardo DiCaprio in South Africa. A couple of big Marvel's movies have been shot, in South Africa, and a huge part of that is because there are incentives that are put in place to actually make sure that if you do a co-production, then the government will come through with a tax rebate or an incentive of some sort. So the big change is that government last year, starting in September, lowered some of the incentives, almost cutting them by a half. And, that has, understandably led to a lot of angst in the industry, particularly amongst the independent filmmakers who might not have the budget of, a big corporate such as a MultiChoice.
Let's talk about the rationale here. I mean, why would government, go for removing rebates like these or reducing them rather, Mudiwa, when it is so beneficial to the sector?
So I think, just so that I get it correct, there's a foreign film tax rebate, which offers 20% rebate on what's called qualifying South African production expenditure. And then additionally to that, you get an extra 5% incentive if you do post-production expenditure and also utilizing the services of Black-owned services companies. So the maximum rebate, per project is now sitting at 25 million rand, down from 50 million rand previously. So you hear what I was saying, about it being cut in half. So, the big issue here is just the fact that at least to my understanding from the research that we had been doing, is that the rebate, the key word is qualifying expenditure, from what I just explained to you. And part of the qualification, you had to it had to do with Black economic empowerment, what people normally term as BEE. So it seems government wasn't happy with the fact that certain productions or certain studios seem to be unduly benefiting from BEE. So what they did was to make the rules a bit more stringent, to cut down, on some of that activity, just make sure that the right people are getting access to the incentives. But unfortunately, in doing so, they made the what's the word I'm looking for? They made the incentives, they cut them, and then they also made the ability to get those approvals for rebates much harder. So a lot of production houses now complaining that not only is the rebate smaller, but the process of actually even getting it from government is now much harder. Years spent by certain productions without getting anything from government.
So, of course, Mudiwa, this is I guess, is a bit of a double whammy here because, of course, the point is for the rebates to benefit those that it's supposed to benefit, and government then saw this issue as something worth rectifying. But what does that put, strain and maybe even dread on foreign investment in our film industry? Because, of course, if it's seen that other places around the world, other territories around the world are able to offer better incentives and easier for them to, for business to be done, then South Africa could definitely lose out as well.
It certainly does. There are some really key examples that have come through in the last couple of years, because we have a number of different countries, such as Ireland, New Zealand, Greece, the Canary Islands, Mauritius, that are offering, rebates, between, I think, 32% and 40%. So, contrast that to the 20% that I mentioned just now, and then there's a 5% on top of that. So you're looking at a maximum of 25%. You're competing against countries that are offering as much as a 40% rebate. And one of the examples that was given to us by the producers that we were talking to, during this process, is that there was actually a TV series that had been planned to be shot in KZN, and they were looking at a 90 million rand budget over 3 months. But because of all this uncertainty that we're talking about, that particular project ended up having to be moved to Greece, by the production house. And the producers that we're talking to actually said that there are, 30 to 40 different examples, similar examples of, projects that would have come to SA but have not ended up being shot in SA. So obviously, in a country where the agenda is around jobs and that type of thing, we're losing billions.
So let's talk about then the ability to rectify here, Mudiwa. Is there an opportunity for government and the industry to sit around the table, have further conversations and renegotiate what we are seeing here? And even for government to have a conversation about what they were not enjoying in terms of what they were seeing and who was benefiting from it, dialogue, as opposed to this, or has this all been gazetted, signed, sealed, deliver, and it's all done?
Well, for now, the independent producers, organization, IPO, is trying to lobby government to actually meet with them, because what they are arguing is that there was a process that began, when the initial changes were proposed back in 2018, and there were a number of different bodies that were tasked to form a working group, the likes of the IPO that I just mentioned, the likes of Animation SA, and a couple of others that were tasked to engage with government. Now, what the producers are arguing is that they actually haven't had adequate engagement with government, and that what was released in September, came as, somewhat of a surprise to them. So all of this noise that's being made is to try and get a meeting with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition that is under Ibrahim Patel, to actually engage with them further. Because what they're saying is, listen, we understand that we need reform and things needed to change, but the way that you've gone about changing them is hurting a lot of businesses along the way. Can we sit down in a room? We approached DTIC and they said that they've been engaging with the industry, throughout the process. But the industry players themselves are actually saying, no, we have not had FaceTime with the department or the minister. And we really do need to iron out a lot of things, down the road.
Sounds like something we'll keep hearing about in the future, Mudiwa. Thank you for chatting to us about it this afternoon. That was the Business Days business writer, Mudiwa Gavaza.